Walking down the street. Is it the Van Halen version? Oh,
No, it's the Roy Orbison. Roy Orbison is dope.
yeah, he's a mother. Okay, here we go.
I've only really heard a few of his
popping
songs.
off. Okay, let me get
We're
the
live.
link here. Copy video.
Suez
link.
Canal 2021.
Oh, what's going on with that?
Is that how you say it, Suez?
I don't know.
It's done as of like 13 hours ago.
They fixed it?
13 hours ago, like when I woke up today. Yep.
Wow. So we can all get our sugars and spices now.
Our goods.
Live
Exactly it.
with episode 67. Apparently that problem of that canal being blocked is not like that's not like a 2020 like thing. It's happened a bunch in the past.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not like this is the first time. It's still obviously super disruptive, but
It seems super narrow.
yeah. Well,
Like-
it's a canal. I mean, that's
There's a global tracking of what happened, and it's like in live, and you can see from like not like the actual picture, but sort of like a line and the surrounding canal, and it's like it's a pretty narrow line, you know?
yeah. But if they don't go through there, they gotta probably go around the whole continent or whatever, right? It's just the way it is. All right, should we do a clap? Are
Things
you
will never be the
recording?
same. Yeah, I'm into that. Let me just double check and make sure. I'm not.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I am
That was
recording.
close.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
There we go. We were good on my end, so
All right, perfect.
it will be good.
Good, like steamboat worth of delay there.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Music Guy Podcast. The podcast about a couple of guys just trying to scrape by in the 2021 music industry. My name is Al Rowe. I am a singer, songwriter, record producer, teacher, podcaster, Twitch streamer, YouTube video maker. I do a bunch of different stuff, and it all comes back to music. And I'm broadcasting to you from the heart of the beaches in Toronto, Ontario. My co-host, guitarist, backup vocalist, composer, podcaster, all-around great dude, handsome fella, coming at you from Whitby, Ontario. It's Mr. Michael Hebbs. Welcome to the show. Welcome to your own podcast. How are you?
My skin is very shiny right now.
Okay.
I just moisturized, and I don't think it's a good thing. I think for movies they do something to
You got to
fix
powder
that,
your
but it's very shiny.
powder
I'm
that
just-
forehead. Yeah.
I'm gonna zoom in on it for those who are looking online.
You're
and It looks like
glowing.
it's just getting darker.
You're glowing.
Oh, there's my teeth.
There you go.
There you go. We're gonna
That's,
leave it like this for a little bit.
Good.
No,
That's
I'm
great.
doing good. Just preparing for my probable departure from the country.
Yeah, so give
and then
everybody
my
the
2 weeks of
update.
isolation. Look forward to this. Yes, the update. Okay, the update is I passed a medical. I passed a medical, and there was a rectal examination, which I mean, like poop or like butt humor. It's not really that funny, but
That's funny to me.
it was kind of funny because I was asked to do my rectal examination, and so I get into the room. I'm preparing for him to put, his fingers in my butt and check the prostate. He's like, "Oh, I don't need to put anything in there." And he's like, I'm just gonna have, another person in, if that's okay with you, to make you more comfortable. So I have 2 fucking dudes, and he's like, "Okay, I'm not gonna touch you at all. You just have to pull down your pants and spread your butt cheeks for me, and I'm just gonna look in."
Cool.
And so
cool.
there's this fucking guy, like, and his bud. And his bud, like, I was trying to joke and be like, "Oh, thanks for helping the team," and he was just so uncomfortable. It was funny. But so
How
yeah,
does
I mean,
that
I'll
make
be
you more
departing.
comfortable?
I think it's more so to avoid like sexual
I
harassment
see.
claims. You know what I
I
mean?
see. Right.
Um,
The
but
old group date
under the guise
kind of
of making
deal.
me more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know. So the thing to look forward to is I am going to be so busy on our Music Guy podcast, Instagram, and on my Instagram, and on our videos and our YouTube during these 2 weeks of isolation. So it's gonna be fucking crazy. I haven't decided what I'm gonna be doing, but I'm gonna be stuck in a nice fancy room on a cruise ship for 2 weeks by myself. No human contact. So it's
Wow.
going to be great. We're going to do some cool things, and hopefully we can get, I'm going to try to bring my camera. So, maybe I'll be able to get the a video cast of us going, but
Nice.
for the
Yeah.
podcast. But we'll do some wacky things. I'm going to make you do things that make you uncomfortable.
So is this room on the ship, and the ship is moving, or is it docked and you're just sitting in there for 2 weeks, or?
I would assume it's docked just because it's before any guests arrive.
And then
Um,
do you get
So
like, how do you get food? People, so somebody just brings you food? Like, you just literally, are
think
you
so.
just
So it's
literally
like
never
prison
leaving this
rules.
room?
Yes,
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a window?
it's gonna be. I'm gonna have a balcony actually.
Oh, okay.
So,
Wow. So what are you gonna do for exercise?
jerk off.
Just
I have
relentless
no idea.
masturbation? Yeah.
Really vigorous. I don't think my poor, fragile, tiny penis could handle that. So, I don't know. I'll probably. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure for the first 2 or 3 days, it'll be like, whoa, this is fucked up, but kind of cool. And
Yeah.
then the rest is just going to be insanity. But it's going to be crazy. I'm going to be on social media. So it is
Yeah.
going to be crazy. I'll be doing some wacky shit for sure.
You can bring like a
because I'll be going
PS4 with you
crazy.
or something, or?
I'm trying to decide what I'm gonna bring. There's so many things that I'm like, it would be nice to bring. I'm gonna be bringing my stupid fucking beat pad. I lift it up, but it's attached to a stand, so I'm gonna get good at playing, like fake drums, just because that'd be like a great producer thing to
That's
actually
good.
be able to play like a real take and not have to like completely quantize it. And then I am bringing not this lap steel, but a different lap steel, which I had to apply for a permit because it has a Brazilian rosewood fretboard, blah, blah,
Ooh.
blah, blah. And then other than that, I have to bring a microphone for the podcast. I'm going to bring my interface. I'm going to try to bring my camera too.
Yeah.
Just because I think it'd be a waste to not, you know.
You're so
I'm bringing my
career-driven,
brother's laptop because I don't own a laptop that's good. So, yeah.
I would just be thinking
But,
about like how many video games I could get through in that 2 weeks. Like, that would be my.
Yeah, I don't know also too, like I don't know what the streaming's gonna be like there. Should I be downloading like seasons of shows? I would,
Mhm.
yeah. I would like to bring a PS4. I just don't know if I'll have room.
Mhm.
You know, like
You can bring
so,
mine if you want. I haven't played it in months. So.
there you go. I have one.
Oh,
I
you
have
have
one
one.
now.
Okay.
So
Well, there you go.
yeah, I remember our days of Chell when we first moved in together.
Dude, definitely.
The mark of magic.
So that's super
yeah.
exciting, man. So sorry. When is departure for you?
It looks like I'm departing like April 14th ish.
Mhm.
I should know specifically, but I'm living day to day
Yeah.
for the last decade and a half, so that's where I'm at.
Well, that's super exciting, dude. And then you're gone for 4 months, right? So you'll be back kind of
And then I'm gone
late
for 4 months, baby.
late summer, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
dude. That's gonna be
So-
that's gonna be such an awesome experience, and it's so great to have this opportunity come up now when it's just like we're all pretty like
That's
despondent, you know. It's like, what are we gonna do? Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
I wonder what the dating situation on the old cruise ship is. I know you can't
Hey.
fool around with the passengers. It's probably for the best.
Yeah.
But I know that the crew is encouraged, so
Okay,
we'll see.
encourage.
Do they rock Tinder or like Bumble
Right.
or like You know,
It's the old
I don't know.
put a sock on the doorknob, you know?
That's exactly it.
Or is there just going to be
I
the
like
one
that.
is there just going to be the one room in the ship that everybody knows like that's where you go, you just,
Yeah,
turn the lights off,
yeah.
see who's
It'll
in
be
there,
like
see what you want to see
it's
what
not
happens.
close to glory holes.
Oh my god. Um
This got very X-rated.
So what we're really here to talk about today, we wanted to do like a reaction to our reaction show last week of, the
Yeah.
demise of the middle class musician. We're all doomed, and we sort of reacted to that and said, no, we're not. But we wanted to follow up on that and be like, so what is the survival guide for the musician in, the year 2021? Not even really assuming the pandemic's going to last much, much longer, but it's like, what are some tools, what are some skills, what are some states of mind, mentalities that you want to have to be successful in the music industry as sort of a middle class, person who's trying to make a living at this stuff? Because obviously there's a lot of us who have a great passion for music and the music business, and we've devoted our lives to it. Or maybe some of you out there want to devote your life to it. And we think we've got some good sound advice for you folks. So
Yeah.
stay
Also, too,
tuned
to not go crazy.
and to not go crazy.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, because that's the big thing. It's like to survive and like not, just to know what you're getting into too.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
mean, the
that's a
big
good
thing
point.
is that I wanted to mention, just because I'm the worst about this, and it's probably trickled through into the show, is I definitely have a prejudice against wealthy people.
Mm,
There's like a jealousy and an envy there, but they just have a different set of problems. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? If they're going to go to pursue music, I wouldn't know what those problems are, because I definitely was not, a rich person.
like, do you get a
say, for
60?
instance, one
Do
of
you
them
get a
could be for-
67 Strat, or do you get a 69 Strat? Like, that's a big decision, man. Yeah.
It's a big decision. But like also two things like say for instance, if you come from such a wealthy family that you never really have to succeed, that would be hard to find motivation. You know what I mean?
Mm,
It'd be like, what's the point, sort of thing. So that is a thing. So just that being said, the only reason we're saying middle class musicians is because that's where we have experience. You and I, to my knowledge, did not grow up in a very poor family as well. But some of these would be similar, just maybe more extreme for someone who grew up in extreme like poverty, or like just poverty.
oh my
in
gosh.
general.
I mean, like, let's get this out right out of the gate. I feel extraordinarily privileged, and to the
Yes.
point of almost like shame and embarrassment at times.
Yep.
It's and how that's been highlighted to me over the last year or whatever, year and a half. I just watching this pandemic go by, and like, yeah, it's affected me, but I'm sitting here in my little studio room doing my thing, and like, I'm healthy. The people I love are healthy. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, let's, obviously, maybe not obviously, but let's start by saying that. Like, I think we would both agree. We're both definitely extraordinarily privileged. We live in Canada. We live in Toronto. We're good. You know what I mean? But we are sustaining ourselves off of the music industry. And I mean, that's kind of the theme of this show. So it's like, how are we doing that? And I think if you want to do that, I think there's some really great things that we've learned that'll sort of help, like you said, prepare yourself for what this industry is like and what this lifestyle is like, but also just keep you going. Because sometimes, you're not feeling so great. And I know a lot of us are in that spot right now. It's like, you're not feeling super good right now if you're a musician and it's pandemic and it's lockdown and you're not playing shows and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're trying to say here. So I think the term middle class is just sort of mostly just referencing the article that spawned the last show. But I would say that you and I identify as being quote unquote middle class, but I think that is still a heavily privileged position to be in life. It's this,
100%.
it's not linear from you know, being sort of having a hard time with maybe being in a situation of poverty to being in the middle class to being in the wealthy class. It's not a
Yep.
straight line. It's more of a curve. So we're
Also, too,
we're saying,
our
you know,
poverty is much different than world poverty. You know what I mean? We're all in the fucking top 1%.
that's what I'm
of the
trying to
goddamn
say.
world.
Yeah, it's like we're still in the
Yeah.
1%. So like we need to recognize that and definitely be humble about
sure.
that. But what we want to do is
Give a
communicate with
little
other people
sports analogy.
who are in similar spots as us and sort of try to help people out. So
Also, one thing as well, though, is you were saying about this would work for everybody. I feel like, say, for instance, if you and I came from a wealthy family, like a truly wealthy family, there would be things that you can do to leverage that wealth and avoid things to avoid. Like, I've seen some more wealthy people who've done the same thing that, like middle class people have done, where they get a really expensive producer, but that producer kind of knows that they're, wealthy, so they fucking like jack up the costs of everything and really
Sure.
take advantage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So like there would be a guide for them. It's just we can't do that, and we can't have a wealthy person on and be like, we know that your parents were fucking loaded.
Well, I mean,
You
I
know,
think whether or not you've got $1 million or $100, a lot of this stuff would still be helpful, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah. So speaking of rich people, if you are rich and you want to give us some dough for to show some love to the podcast,
Tip number 1.
patreon.com/Music Guy Podcast. But no, in all seriousness, it's a way to sort of give back to the show. If you feel like you want to support what we're doing, there are expenses involved, and we are certainly not getting rich ourselves off of this show, and nor do we intend to. We're doing this sort of as a fun project that maybe will eventually sort of be another piece of the pie for us. And we could certainly use your support, so we would appreciate anybody who's going over to patreon.com/Music Guy Podcast and giving back to the show. So thank you for that. And you can also find our merch if you want to give back to the show.
Oh yes.
And become an advertising billboard for the show. Then you could go.
Oh yeah.
go to the merch store. Yeah, we got some really cool stuff going on there. And again, just another great way to support what we're doing, and we love you for it. And we sold some shirts, I think, right?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we sold some shirts, sold a sweater, some stickers, some buttons.
And so we're gonna take that little bit of money that comes in for that and just sort of use that to expand the reach of the podcast. Maybe do some social media marketing campaigns. Maybe do some improvements to the website and things like that. So just want to get that in there. But yeah, so I've got a sports analogy. Here we go. So on any sports experts out there, just feel free to correct me on any and all of this. On July 1st, 2018, if you're a Leafs fan like me, you're going to remember this well. I had the radio on, and I think it was Bob McKenzie from TSN on the radio, and he said, the Leafs have acquired John Tavares in free agency, and I was so excited. I was like, yo, I couldn't believe this was happening. Like, I was just like, what? So, John Tavares, Toronto-born, or Mississauga-born, I guess, player. One of the best players in the league. One of the best players for the Leafs now. And at the time
Went to my high school.
the franchise. He went to your high school?
Yeah. He's a very nice boy.
What?
If I'm not mistaken.
That
I'm pretty sure.
is crazy.
I'm pretty sure.
Wow. Maybe because maybe he
gonna
played
look
for the
that up.
Oshawa Generals. I don't know. So now I'm gonna get out of my depth. Here.
Yeah.
I gotta stick to my notes. So, but that's super cool. Yeah, no, because he's the same age as us, right? Or born 1990s, 2 years younger. Anyways, so was at the time of this free agency signing the franchise player, the best player on the New York Islanders, was drafted by them, played for them for like 7 or 8 years or whatever. Was their best player. And the question was, is he going to re-sign with them or is he going to leave them for the Leafs? So he leaves them for the Leafs. And, that's kind of brutal for them. They lose their best player for nothing, and he goes to Toronto. It's like a market that everybody hates. So that playoff year, the Leafs get eliminated in the first round by the Bruins, as usual. the New York Islanders, having lost their best star player to the Leafs, make it to the second round. They sweep the Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney Crosby's team, like one of the stronger teams in the league. They sweep them. They don't drop a single game to them. They move on to the second round. And so why does this happen? How does this happen? The Leafs take your best player and then you still do better than us. They're scrappy. They're a scrappy team. Anybody who watches sports kind of gets that. They use every part of the buffalo, if you will. They're a very disciplined team. They play a great defensive system, right? But they're players who, like, maybe a lot of them you haven't heard of, are all working together. They're all working hard. They're all working. So that's sort of the definition of like a scrappy team in sports. And to me, anyways. And so last week we touched on this mentality of like, as a musician, me personally, I feel like I got to have that scrappy mentality. And I think, Mike, you really related to that. Do you want to sort of build on that, like what your mentality is and how that relates to you?
When you said that, and if you go back to the podcast, episode 66, it should have been episode 666 because it was so like harsh and real.
Yeah.
But
doom and gloom.
Yeah, like when you said that, I was like, oh, that's exactly it. Scrappy is exactly what I think of myself. Just in all of these things that we're going to say in the episode, it's that scrappy mentality of just not like, oh yeah, I'll do this for like 3 or 4 years and see how it goes. It's like, I'm going to fucking survive. Even if it's like, I lose a few fucking limbs, you know what I mean? It's yeah, like I love that. Just the idea that you're willing to not, it almost sounds like I'm saying like, oh, be a sketchy person, but it's not be a sketchy person. It's just be willing to do things like, pull an all-nighter here or there. Obviously within like reason. You don't want to become a workaholic like some people. But just say, for instance, also too, I don't know, like financially being willing to, maybe be more tight with your money and I don't know, like just be willing to try things like start a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
I think you got to use all of the tools in your tool belt or all of the strengths that you have as a person. So, if you are good at talking for a long time without running out of things to say like me, then, you could start a podcast, right? Or like if you're good at learning, I don't know, multiple instruments. If you know multiple instruments, use that. Don't just be like, well, I'm only a guitar player. It's like, well, also I can play keyboards. Also I can sing backup vocals. Also I can program drums. Whatever, right? If you're really good at organization, which so many of us are not. I forgot we were doing this podcast today until about 5 minutes before. So many of us are not good at organization. If you are, you can play a very, very important role in maybe booking a band or being the person in your band or in your group who's like, I'm the one who schedules things. I'm really good at that. And I, like out of our fee that we charge to play, I take a little bit extra because I do all the scheduling of all the rehearsals. I send all the emails. Yeah. I'm really good at keeping on top of all that stuff like that, right? And then on top of that, acquiring new tools or new skills or new strengths to build your toolbox, your skill set, and then using all of those as best you can to forward your goal of, like you said, just surviving in this business. It's like it's that game where you just parachute in, you got nothing, and you start picking stuff up, and you got to kill everybody.
Oh, you're talking about oh god,
it's not Fortnite.
I used to actually play that game.
Is it Fortnite?
It was the one the kids play, Fortnite.
Is it Fortnite? Is that what it is?
And there was another one.
Yeah.
PUBG.
Okay.
That's the one.
So
PUBG.
It's like that, except instead of trying
also too, just the idea.
Instead of trying to kill all of your friends, you like make friends and become an awesome team. Sorry, go ahead.
No murder. But like also too, the big scrappy thing for me is like, I learned this early on, like the injury that I had right at the gate after high school. It's like, oh, I injured my hand. Music's probably not for me. It's like, fuck no. I'm going to figure that shit out. Or it's like, oh, like say for instance, I dropped out of school. Music's not for me. It's like, no, fuck that. I'm going to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like just stuff like that. It's like,
Yeah.
oh man, I'm 32, I don't own a home, and fucking coronavirus. I should probably just, it's probably time to throw in the towel. It's like I'm gonna fucking die trying to make this happen,
Yeah.
and not actually die, but
But
uh,
you've got
s-
that drive, that persistence where you're like, no, I can figure this out.
yeah,
I can get through
yep,
this. Yeah,
yep,
yeah, yeah. So I guess the next sort of things that we have written down are sort of under this umbrella of being scrappy. In a way, it's like these are some of the different things that you need to sort of think
how to
about
be
or
scrappy.
navigate or be ready to conquer or skills you might want to develop. So uh, so you wrote down facing hard realities. This is like a stern
Just
talking to here. This show. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think if you're gonna be fucking scrappy, is like all the stuff that we're saying in this. These are like hard realities, but like just there are certain things like, hey, certain people get lucky, or they come from the right know the right people, and they get a record deal, and it's a really good record deal, and it works out for them right off the gate. Certain people never ever get signed to a record label. It's like you have to face the realities of, say for instance, you may not be a very wealthy person. Maybe you will later in life, maybe you never will be, you know what I mean? Or just like facing the realities that it's just not all like rock star shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like right out the gate, if you only want to do this because you want to be super successful and that's the only way you could be happy, then like get the fuck out. Like because that's not going to happen probably.
Right. Well, I
Um,
think one of the and to build on that, like one of the things that I wrote down is that the work itself is the reward in this business.
yes.
So the making a living part is like so amazing because even if you're just getting by, like you get to do awesome stuff that you love all the time. Where I think like a lot of other jobs are like, I do the job that I don't necessarily love to get the reward of money and security and comfort in life. And sort of our existence is a little bit flipped where it's like we're sacrificing making a ton of money and having security and having whatever. I mean, assuming I could have gotten a great job in the first place, which is not even necessarily a given. But I think like if
With
you
that
look at the
music degree,
way
baby.
if you look at the way a career is structured, like sometimes it's just like you're doing the work to get the reward of the money, and money gets you,
Yep.
luxuries and comfort and stability and whatever.
Vacations and
And in our job, it's like you're doing the job. The job is the reward. So like if I get to do music stuff, I am getting the reward. So it's like then I got to figure out how to make the bills go away and stuff like that. So that's almost the work is just sort of, I guess, handling the rest of your life and making sure that it's in line and that everything's good. So part of that is avoiding debt. I mean, we wrote down stuff like avoiding debt, being thrifty. I think it's just being good with money is a pretty important skill for anybody anywhere. But I mean, I think there's certain jobs where it's like, you get your paycheck and you sort of everything just sort of works out. You're in a spot where you're like, yeah, my bills are this, I get this. I don't really have to think about how much I'm spending on this or that because it's all good right now.
also too, if you make enough money, the bank will be more lenient with with letting you accrue debt. You could get like $100,000 credit line. Whereas someone like us can't. When you hit your max, you hit your max.
Yeah. And you got to get like a broker for a mortgage and stuff like that. But it's like really important to still, even though you're not doing this for the money, I think there can be a mentality where people think, well, I'm not in this for the money. Money is evil. I'm not about that. Therefore, I'm not going to think about that. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to hope that it works out, And I think that that's a very dangerous thought process to have when you are in the position of an unstable career where things are not always, you're not always getting the same amount of money. I think you can have that mentality when you have a stable job. You can actually be like, I'm not going to worry about money, even though you're doing it for the money. You know what I mean? But when you're in this job, and I think you can get into that false sense of like, well, I'm not doing for this for the money, so I don't really think about that stuff. And it's like, actually, you need to think about it more, in my opinion. And it's another thing where it's like, whether you like it or not, you're in the game. Like, you live in a country, if you live in Canada or the U.S., you live in a country that is a capitalist society, and the thing that matters most to pretty much everybody is how much money you have or whatever. And like, you're in that game unless you're like off the grid and you're living out of a backpack or in like a bunker somewhere in northern Canada. Like, you're in the game.
That's
so
cool as fuck.
You need to understand how to play that, because otherwise you're getting played by the banks or whoever else. So I think it's important to just make sure that you're on top of that stuff. And we've done episodes in the past about sort of what we do to keep our finances in order. But I just think it's really important to make that a priority.
As someone having a credit card and having like a $5,000 credit card, and it's like maxed out. And then like, versus having a credit line that is maxed out. It's like, obviously you don't want to have any debt, but the fucking interest rate on like your Long McQuaid bill or a credit card is 20%. Whereas on a credit line, it's not the same. You know what I mean? So it's like, just like understanding that you can handle your money differently. You know what I mean? Like, avoiding debt is like the fucking key, but it's like just to not think about it or to not do your taxes. That's a big thing you're saying right now. Like, your taxes compared to your fiance's taxes are night and fucking day.
Far more
for you,
complex.
it's like a multiple day ordeal. Same here.
Yeah.
Like for her, it's like, oh yeah, because her taxes are automatically taken, I'm assuming, out of her paycheck.
Yeah.
But we're like independent contractors. But that fucking stacks up. You know what I mean? If you're claiming lots of stuff, you're going to be saving yourself money that you would have had to pay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. So I mean, make sure you're on top of that. Having a really good accountant has helped me a lot. Just because my accountant, I feel like I can reach out to him kind of whenever and just be like, hey, I don't really understand this or that, and he's just been always super great about helping me out, just understanding things. And then when it comes to tax time, I just trust him to as long as I'm not obviously like making up numbers, which you should never do, and I never do, but like, if I'm being truthful, it's like, okay, well, I trust him to take the information that I am giving him about my finances and putting it in the right categories and putting the numbers together in the right way. And like, I don't know all the ins and outs of that. Maybe I should, I don't know. But as long as I take diligent records of like how much money I'm making and what I'm spending on different expenses that are considered to be, write-offs or whatever, things you can deduct, and I give it to him and he takes care of it. And I think it's a worthwhile expense and certainly a worthwhile relationship to build. So if you don't have a good accountant, I would really recommend checking that out. Because like, I just don't think like something like TurboTax really works for people in our situation. But yeah.
Fuck yeah. I mean, so we had something written further that I moved up. This ties into avoiding debt, being thrifty as fuck. Is like applying for benefits. And we were more so thinking about like during the fucking pandemic, the Unison benefit is something that, helps out musicians who are struggling financially. And then like, say for instance, CRB is for people who aren't, making money right now. But this ties into things as well. Like, if you're fucking deciding to go to school, which is one thing, and we have an episode on that. My opinion on that, Al. Deciding to go to school for music, you should be applying for fucking grants, and they're there, and there are plenty of people who don't apply for them, and they just fucking show up.
Yeah.
Or say, for instance, I see this all the time, and I would be guilty of this because I was so not aware of this. I kind of forgot about them actually, is grants for recording and touring. You know,
Yep.
like they're not impossible to get. And they're some of the grants I've heard of people getting are like quite large, you know,
Yep.
um, which is amazing. So it's like investigating that stuff is like a part of being scrappy. It's like, oh, I can't afford to get a record done. What can I do to see like a GoFundMe or something like
Mm,
that? Not just being like, I can't afford it, so I'm not going to do it. It's like,
yeah.
well, figure out how you can.
Right. Or
Scrappy
like,
motherfucker.
I think a lot of people get into spots where they feel like they need to take out a loan or something to do this record or
Yeah.
do this tour or do this whatever. And um, maybe you do, but maybe you could also look into some of the assistance that is offered to us by the government. So, especially in Canada, and there's a lot of great programs here. Unison Fund
Yeah.
specifically helped me out right at the start of the pandemic when I saw all my
Me too.
work evaporate. I hit them up. I said, "Hey, look, like, this is what's going on." I had to, bare my soul a little bit and show them what I'm making and how much money I have and stuff. But
You had to
they were
spread your
super
cheeks
they
and
were
they had to
super
look
cool.
inside.
Exactly. Yeah, they were super cool about it and very generous and helped me out. So that fund in particular, obviously the CRB should go without saying, like, apply for that if you are in a category that this is for people like us. So if you're in a category where you're
Yeah.
applicable to this, or this is applicable to you, then apply for that. Get on it, because it's there
Go
for you.
nuts.
We're gonna be paying
Yeah, man.
invisible taxes for like the next 20 years to pay for the CRB. So you might as well take it now.
Sure.
'Cause you're still gonna be.
Yep.
You're still the common person is still gonna be paying for that stuff down the road. So make sure you're benefiting from it now if you're able. So yeah, I think that's enough said on all that.
On finance.
On finances, yeah, just really, like, you're in the game, so make sure that you're doing everything you can to not get played by others and to
So
take
you
care of
can
yourself.
stay in the game for a long time.
Exactly. So we've got side jobs being a reality for a lot of us, and as much as I want to come on here and be the guy who says you can do anything you set your mind to, it's like, well, yeah, but sometimes part of that is taking on a side job at certain times because you're working on, you're building your career, you're building your skills, you're building your connections. I mean, I've been teaching for longer than I've been playing gigs because I just that's what I was able to get, and I needed the money, and I do enjoy it. I've grown to enjoy it, and I've gotten better at it over the years. But it's like it's the kind of thing that you might look at and be like, I don't really want to do that, and it's like, well, I mean, but I also really
Then
like.
what do you want to do to make fucking money?
I really want to have this apartment I'm in, so I need to teach in order to make that happen. So sometimes, and just as a side note, actually, that just sort of triggered this own thing. But like back to that money thing, like I really like to compartmentalize different things financially. It makes it easier for me to think about this stuff. So like I've always sort of said, it's like, okay, my teaching is going to cover my rent, and then the other stuff is going to cover my other expenses, and then maybe there'll be some left over to save. When I'm able to line it up such that teaching covers rent, and then maybe this covers that, it makes it a lot easier rather than I don't have to think numbers as much. If I it's almost like a set and forget kind of thing. It's like if I teach this many lessons every month, I know I'm good. Then I'm not constantly, looking at my bank balance and freaking out. It's like I've got a little buffer in there, and I know if I keep teaching, it's not going to start going down. So, that's my side job, and I'm sure there's other people who maybe like work at Long McQuaid, or maybe they have a career or a job that's completely unrelated to music, and that can be nice too because you're not completely faced all the time every day with like, if you work at a music store, you might always be feeling like, man, I wish I was doing better musically. It's like if you don't want to be faced with that negative sort of self thing. If you can be you know, at a job that maybe takes your mind off music sometimes. That can be nice too, I think.
Yeah, so it's like a contrast.
Mm-hmm.
That I do find that with teaching, part of it would be nice to be like at a job where I'm like, man, I wish I was playing guitar right now. But every job has its fucking advantage. But yeah, side jobs, they a thing.
Oh yeah, that's another way of looking at it too. It's like, yeah, if you worked in a music store, you might get burned out on music, or if you teach, you might get burned out on music. But if you're doing a job that's different than music, you might be like, that might build up your excitement to get back to your music. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about it that way. That's really good. Yeah, yeah. So, you know, sacrifices that we have to make. More sacrifice, you know, to my career. I mean, you do have to do some stuff. I don't want to say like you should be sacrificing things that are important to you, but you know, expecting that like, yeah, I think it's maybe more of an expectations management thing, but just like, you know, certain luxuries are probably not going to be available if you're going down a career path that's, you know, not really known for generating a ton of income. Be ready for that. Be aware that, like, you know, yeah, your car, if you're able to afford a car, it's probably not going to be a super expensive one. You might have to live outside of the city that you're near because the rent is just super high in the city. You might have to get a bit of a smaller place. You might have to live in a basement like you and I did for a year, you know?
Yeah, baby.
To minimize expenses that way. And just understanding that your stability, you're sacrificing some stability, which means you're just going to have to plan ahead a little bit more and be aware that
well, like also
you don't have that all the time. Yeah.
Your life is, at least the thing that I've come to accept is that your life, like, trajectory is going to be different than that of people with normal jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like family planning. You know, I feel like a lot of people, there's a certain age where they want to have kids, and obviously it's older than it was before. But say, for instance, if it was the same that it was before, like, oh, 25, you know, I want to have a kid. It's like, that's pretty hard to do if you're a musician, you know what I mean? But it's doable. I haven't done it, but, you know, I know people who have done it, but that's gonna, you know, family planning is definitely different for a musician.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's gonna take a little bit longer. You know, we're now at that age where we can maybe start to think about that, you know, and then, like, yeah, like you said, like the car, you know, the clothing that you wear, not fucking going on vacations.
Yeah.
That's like thing, you know, not being around for fucking like New Year's and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like you are going to have to sacrifice maybe everything that's important to you. You know what I mean? At the very worst, yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I think it's possible to find balance in your life, and I mean, if you're the type of person who really values traveling and you know, for leisure, and like you know, you don't want to be working on any holidays and stuff like that, it's gonna be pretty difficult, I think, to avoid that because of just the way that the business works. But I also feel
you could probably structure your career.
Yeah,
way,
I mean,
though.
again, you
Like,
would
if
just
you
have
were
to
like an
sort of
artist,
work around that, I guess. But a lot of the biggest opportunities for us do tend to come on some of those big days like New Year's and whatever else. So being
Valentine's Day.
Stuff. So being willing and sort of being upfront, if you have a partner, being upfront that, like, hey, look, like, this is kind of how it is for me, and so we might have to celebrate some holidays the day before or something and do our own thing instead of and you know, you'll find the right person who's cool with that, but it's just like, that kind of stuff for sure. You know, being the marathon, not a sprint mentality. I know you sort of brought that up last episode as well. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. That's just something we had mentioned earlier in the podcast. I think there are a few like realizations that we've had from this podcast. Like marathon mentality is one, the scrappy mentality is one.
Hmm.
I don't know if there's any other, but like I guarantee you those are going to be around for like the next 100 episodes. But like
Yeah.
just the idea that I think a lot of people think that, oh man, if I just fucking just gun it for these 2 years, I can like hack the system and be like a big star or be like super successful. And I haven't seen that, you
Hmm.
know? It seems like everybody who's gotten somewhere, like obviously there are people that have gotten not like lucky, because lucky makes it seem like they don't deserve it. But there are people who have maybe been in the right place at the right time or on the right, say for instance, um, platform like TikTok or YouTube or Vine at the right time and met up with the right people and gotten where they needed to go. But generally, it's like, it's going to be a long time before you see, before it's, say, for instance, I'm not even at the point where I can just do music full time. I still have to teach.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I've been doing this. I've been doing this since I was fucking like, I knew I wanted to be a musician when I was like 14 or 15. Um, and like obviously I didn't have the like clarity of mind to start making it career like until, probably like early 20s, mid 20s sort of thing. But that's still a long time. I've been doing that for a decade and I'm still, working a side job and still, looking for different angles to approach this thing, like our podcast and production and playing. When I started, I just wanted to be a guitarist. You know what I mean? So it's like the marathon mentality. Like John Williams, for instance, the composer for Star Wars, he wasn't that big of a deal until mid 40s.
Hmm.
There are plenty of side guys that I know that didn't get the gig that made them, made like their life great until they were like 30, mid 30s,
Yeah.
40s, some people 50s, some actors even,
Oh yeah.
it's like, oh, they weren't a big deal. They just waited tables until they were like 45. But obviously,
Yeah.
you don't want to like give up in that period.
But
So
you
that
got
is a
to,
bummer. Get to 45.
yeah, you got to be willing to grind it a bit because every career takes, I think, a long time to get, really get there. Like even, if you're gonna
Yeah.
talking about like doctor or whatever, like lawyer, nurse, whatever, like there's a lot of schooling involved. So you're really grinding it out for,
Yeah.
4, 8, 10 years. I don't know, right? Where until you're really in the career, but maybe it feels a little bit more, I don't know, like on rails. Like there's a path there. Whereas I think for people like us, sometimes
Yes.
it's like, and not to take anything away from people like that who have the intelligence and education and work ethic to actually get into those careers.
Yes.
But there's a path there, right? And then for us, it's like we have to get through sort of a path like that, except it's not really outlined. Like the first like 5
Yeah.
years of our careers or whatever. I think for both of us, we're just kind of like, what are we doing here? We're not really making much money. But what you are doing is
Yeah.
you're gaining skills, you're building relationships, you're learning on the go, you're failing at things and learning lessons, you're becoming a more well-rounded musician, a more well-rounded person, and then it's like you said, it's like in your 30s, it's like then you get the sweet gig or whatever. So just being ready
Yep.
for it to take a long time. Maybe it won't, but I think it's likely that it will.
How long did it take you to find the agenda?
Well, I got pretty lucky there. I mean, we all knew each other kind of right out of school, but
But when did it form and it was like, we're a production
when did
team?
it
When was
start to
the
roll
Vanessa
as a
record?
production thing? Probably like, I don't know, when I was 28.
Yeah.
We were
Like, that's-
experimenting with
that's
production
late.
before then, but I didn't really.
Yep.
I don't know that I really felt like it was a real piece of the pie financially until
Yeah.
quite recently. So, and now it's
Yeah.
it's actually getting me through this pandemic, being able to produce.
Yep.
So thank goodness
Yep.
for that, and I feel so fortunate. But that's 10 years after I got out of school, or 11 years after I got out of school, right? So,
Yeah.
and it's like I'm doing well enough to make it through this pandemic. You know what I mean? It's not like,
Yep.
oh yeah, now that
What a
I'm 30,
treat.
I'm finally making 80K at my job. Like, no, But anyways,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think it's a marathon, and the beauty of it though is that we never have to retire, right? It's like I still want to be doing
Yes.
all the same stuff and more when I'm 65, 70. Like, I'm still going to have a fire to play guitar and make records and get in the
Yeah.
studio
You're
and
gonna be one of those mastering dicks
hang out with people.
in the
Yeah.
studio with like $200,000
Yeah.
speakers and like really expensive gear, and you can barely speak. You can be like, "Yeah, I'd really like to add 1K to the snare drum
Yeah,
and
man.
take it out of the tambourines."
This stuff is never going to get old. I was at
It's gonna be great.
Metalworks the other day for a video shoot with an artist named Carly June for this CMW thing, and I ran into an
Oh.
engineer that I've run into a few times there. That we were chatting, and I was just like, man, it just feels so good to be in here, and you just see the gear and you see
Yeah.
the space, and you're like, this is never going to get old for me. And this is a guy who's in the studio every day, and he's like, oh yeah, no, this is never getting old for me. Like, this is the best
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
time. I want to be here, you know. And so it's not like a job like maybe, you know, something that's hard on the body, like a construction job, or even like an athlete, you know, is you can only do your, even though you're at the top of the friggin' world, if you're doing, you know, if you're in the NHL or the NBA or whatever, it's or whatever league, you know, it's like, but you can only do that for so long, and then you got to retire. It's like we don't have to. So one of the actual real positives to this career is if you can build it, you get to do it forever, you know, as long as you want
Yep.
to. So I think that's a real cool thing. So I got a hot take here, Mike. I got a hot take.
Ooh.
My and this is like something I've really struggled with actually through my 20s, but now that I'm, you know, old man Al over here, if you're getting into this business, don't have a plan. Don't have a plan. Don't have a plan. And here's why I say that. I think if you have a plan, if you've got a 5-year plan or a 2-year plan or whatever, you've got expectations, you've got your sights set on certain things happening a certain way. And I've just found day after day, year after year, that things just never go the way you expect them to. The relationships that I have right now that are the most important to me, if you had asked me when I was 19, 20, you know, how are you going to meet your fiance? What's she going to be like? Who's going to be the biggest artist that you're working with when you're 30, 31? Who's going to be, you know, are you going to be producing records? Are you going to be, what's your, you know, what's going to be your biggest thing that you're doing in terms of like earning money? What's going to be your favorite thing to do that's maybe not earning you money? Like I would have been wrong about every single one of those things. So I found that when I go with the flow, and I'm going to get to this, but like when I go with the flow a little bit more and be open to possibilities and sort of let things happen the way they want to happen, and obviously be involved and do great work and care about the outcomes of things. I'm not saying don't care about the outcomes of things. I think that's 100% the most important. But you know, deciding I'm going to be X amount successful by age 25. I'm going to have this when I'm 26. I'm going to be in this type of band by the time I'm this. It's like you're just setting yourself up to burn out and be disappointed. And what my view on everything is now is twofold. Always say yes, and I've said this before. Always say yes, and always bring value to others. So,
Sure.
you know, always say yes to the gig, even if you don't feel qualified, even if you don't feel fully comfortable with it. I've thrown myself into the fire multiple times, just been like, you know what? I'm just going to figure this out. I'm going to say yes to this. I'm just going to figure it out. And that's how I've found the most growth professionally, musically. And then, you know, always providing value to others is something that I've not always done as a younger person. But I think one of the most important things you can just do in this business is be the person that people call when they've got a problem they need a solution to this thing. It's like, I don't know how to I need my record mixed, or I need somebody to help me with my songwriting, or I need somebody to play guitar for me on this show, but it's a weird show. It's going to be only acoustic, and it's not going to be, a typical thing. We might not have time to rehearse, or we might have a lot of rehearsals, and we need to do them all because, we need to make sure that this is, you know what I mean? It's like whatever the situation is, say yes to it, but also be like, provide that value. Be like, I can do that.
Yeah,
and I want to, I want to make this happen for you because that's how I can sort of be a part of it. So that's what I think.
I think the big thing too is like kind of what you're saying with the don't have a plan, and this is kind of my Michael Hebbs version of it, is just being willing to pivot and being like, as Bruce Lee says, as water.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, because it's true, right? Like, the idea is that, did I want to be a country guitar when I was convinced I was gonna try to be Steve Vai when I got out of high school. I was like, I'm gonna be this like shredder, like artist dude, which he's amazing. But that doesn't interest me anymore. And at first it was just because I was trying different things, like, BPM crew, like it's kind of like a cover band thing. We'll do this because, like that's fun, and I'll still practice a bunch. And then I was like, I actually really like this. And I took other gigs, and then eventually country came up. I was like, I'll play a country gig. And then, I was like, I really like country. I'm going to get into country. Now I'm learning fucking lap steel. I never had an interest in singing. Now backup is one of the things that I work on a ton. Piano, like all this shit. Another thing that I have to say about the fucking the plan thing is it makes me think of, I'm not one of those dicks that fucking reads The Art of War, but I did read The Art of War.
Oh, I haven't read that.
And like, I just happened to read it, but he talks about, oh God, he talks about in a plan, like there's a moment at which that plan becomes like, this is a horrible summary, a moment at which that full, you know what I mean? Like I think it's like the she or something like that, and you seize it, you know what I mean? So if you execute that plan, or if you plan too far ahead, or you execute the plan at the wrong time, then it's useless. You know what I mean? So say, for instance, on more gigs, and it's like, you have to fucking get on that, get better at backup singing ASAP, so you can get a ton of gigs. Same with piano. It's not like, oh no, I'll get better at piano, so I can get more gigs. It's like, you need to do that ASAP so you can get those fucking gigs. You can't plan ahead and go into it and be like, go into a gig and think what it needs or what that scene needs until you're in it, and then you realize like, oh fuck, I need to be a better producer, or I need to know lap steel. And it's like, you plan to do that, and sometimes it doesn't work out. But if you do it at just the right moment, and you have like just the right skills as a result of it, like that's when shit happens.
Right. I think
so. Yeah, that's
like,
my fucking take on that.
As you gain experience too, you gain maybe these little plans or something where it's like, you're in this situation. Yeah. I know what to do here. Let's make a plan to do this in the short term. Like, you should always be planning. Like, I don't want to say don't plan appropriately for gigs and rehearsals and just fly by the seat of your pants literally all the time. I'm talking like macro level, and I know you are too. But it's like, you'll gain the experience by just saying yes and pivoting and going through these things, and you'll become this wise old person. Or at least this is what I'm hoping happens for me. I guess I'm making a plan right now, but I want to be this like wise old guy who's just like, I know what to do here. Let's go. You got this type of gig at this time. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
At first,
and
you're like, let's go. Holy shit, I don't know what I'm
up.
doing. And then later, you're like, all right, I've been here before. I know what to do.
Let's go. But I mean, I'm sure that things when you're 40 or 50 are going to come up, and you're like, fuck. Like when you open your mastering studio and you're 50, you're going to be like, I have to buy a location. I have to, take out a loan to get these really expensive gear. And it's like, I've never done that before. And it's like,
totally.
But you figure out,
figure it out
as you go.
You lean on people who have experience, don't be afraid to ask for help.
You just have to lay down and take it and accept that you have no control.
Right.
That's what I've tried to learn.
Yeah. Life's a ride, man.
All right.
Life's a ride.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to
an extent, yeah.
When I finally start my TikTok account at age 55, I'll be like, what is this? Yeah.
I want to start like an ironic TikTok account where I just do something completely mundane that's the same every week. And I'm never going to do this, but I just think it'd be really funny. Anyways, so I think there's one more thing we got to get to really quickly. And
Okay.
then I think we should just fucking sum up what the survival guide is in terms of like this phrase, that phrase, that phrase. The advantage of being poor / middle class, a little bit of fucking hope. You always see that with people, businessmen or businesswomen, or just business people that that like come from really poor beginnings, and they see the consequences of being poor, and they don't want to be poor, so they understand that they have to like fucking just like work really hard to not be poor. So there is I do think that there's a drive that comes with being middle class or poor that would be hard to have if you were coming from a wealthy family. It doesn't mean you're better than the wealthy person. It just means that you have different, advantages. Like say for instance, if you came from a wealthy family, it would be possibly harder to motivate yourself, I would think, if you knew no matter what you do, you'll be okay for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? So like that struggle breeds success thing. I think
Definitely
you get more of that
can
when
be
you come.
true. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And then also to understanding the value of money a little bit better. Like if you're a child and you grow up and say for instance you get to the point where you go to college and your college isn't provided for, that sort of stuff, you would understand money like a bit more, I guess. Yeah. Or just understanding how to handle your money. You know what I mean? I think you have a better relationship with that. There have to be advantages to being poor or middle class, and it's like, what can you do to leverage those things? I have no idea. Maybe say for instance, the need to be more diverse in your skill set. If you're a wealthier person, maybe that lack of need to make rent and all of that stuff wouldn't lead you down these little paths, like say for instance with us, where it's like, oh, I've taken a country gig, and country music is mostly what I play now. You know what I mean? But before I was just doing it because I wanted to play in a new band and I needed money.
Right.
So I think that that's an advantage. There have to be them. I'm not covering them all. I haven't thought about it, but there are definitely advantages to every situation, in my belief. But I
Yeah,
don't know
I
if you have
agree.
any
You can
thoughts on
you can
that.
certainly use whatever challenges are in front of you you can use those as motivation to work harder, do better work.
Yep.
And I think that kind of just applies to any challenges that you're facing. And I mean, yeah, if you live a life that's free of challenges, which I don't believe really exists, but like, then you're probably not going to be, super motivated to overcome anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Some of the traps that a wealthy person may fall into,
yeah.
a middle class person may not fall
They
into.
might
and
like
vice versa.
start
Anyways,
shorting
you were gonna
GameStop
continue.
too heavily or something, and then people would like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So just to summarize what we're talking about here, just a survival guide for the musician. Be scrappy. Use all your strengths. Figure out what your strengths are. Use them all. Acquire new ones. Use those ones. Be willing to sort of throw everything you've got at this career. And don't be
Expect struggle.
Yeah, expect that struggle, and don't be afraid to not have a plan. Like let things sort of let the industry sort of show you what you're good at and what opportunities are there for you, and just say yes.
Yeah.
Anytime you get an opportunity to do something with music, say yes to it. Be grateful for it. Be excited about it, because that's what we're all here to do. Handle your stuff in terms of money. Make sure that you're on top of that, because it's harder for us than it is for people with a regular paycheck and regular looking finances. So just spend a little bit of extra time making sure that that's under control, because as soon as that starts to get out of control, it can really have a negative impact on your life
In the
and
future, too.
your like
You're
ability
shooting future
to
Al in the foot.
and your like ability to do music as a career, kind of relies on you sort of having finances under control, because things can be unpredictable. Be willing to do side jobs. Be willing to make sacrifices. You know, all your friends are going out on New Year's and you're playing a gig. It's like, well, playing a gig is the best thing in the world, so I'm still psyched to do that, you know. But it's unfortunately like I'm gonna have to be that guy that says I can't go out with you guys. I gotta work, you know, and I'm okay with that. So that's, you know, among countless other examples. But and you know, just be in it for the ride, be in it for the marathon, be in it for the fact that you know, if you can become successful or moderately successful at music, you get to keep doing music. And there'll never be a day where you're like, man, I really don't want to do music anymore. I'm going to retire. It's like, nah, man, I'm going to still be doing this stuff. So, yeah, I think, and just always be trying to bring value to others. So whether or not you're a solo artist, well, then you're trying to bring value to your fans. How are you doing that? It's not all about you. It's about, you know, the audience as well, right? And like, if you're a side musician, how can you bring the most value to the band that you're in or the artist that you're working with? Or if you're in a studio situation, how can you bring the most value there? Maybe that's just by having a positive attitude, being supportive, not being difficult, showing up on time, being accountable, being reliable, right? Like there's some very basic stuff that brings value, but then there's also like, well, I also sing backups. I also program drums. I also know how to use Ableton for tracks. I also know how to, you know, if you need this, I can do this.
Graphic design.
You look a little tired. Can I get you a coffee? You know, like maybe it's that, right?
Yeah.
It's always like bring value, care about the outcome for the person that's hiring you. You know, make sure that stuff works for them. You know what I mean? So it's like that. I think it's
You're
that
never
kind
better
of
than the gig.
Yeah, I think that's the real, you know, thread that I think you could just sort of link all this together with.
Mentality. I know we got to go here, but just also. I have a theory. Which I can't prove. And I don't think you could ever prove. But I think if you have that mentality of it's just going to take a long time and I'm going to have to be flexible and pivot and make sacrifices, but I'm going to keep doing this and I'll find a way to make it work, but it's going to take a long time. I don't think you could reach 50 if you're working. You know, and being smart and not be somewhat successful.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I think so.
Like, I'm not guaranteeing it, but I don't see how that wouldn't happen. Like, say for instance, I'm banking my life on this because I'm literally like, there's no alternative for me unless something goes like awry, like my whole family gets sick and I have to like support them. But I am like, I'm going to keep going and keep pivoting and I will find something that I love doing in music that will allow me to make a living.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you got a great gig coming up, you know, and you would have never thought if somebody said, you know, you're going to be playing a cruise for 4 months in the middle of a pandemic when you know, you're maybe at your lowest sometimes in terms of like feeling like you had good work going on, as many of us are. Yeah. You would have been like, what? To all of that. You would have not believe that any of that would happen, you know what I mean? So it's just and now, you know, here's a real bright spot where you can be like, yo, I got this sweet gig and I'm gonna throw my whole heart and soul into it and let's make it awesome.
I have been.
Yeah. So yeah, man, I gotta go. I gotta teach. Speaking of pivoting and side jobs,
there you
go. We are up against it, but I really enjoyed this conversation, and we'd love to hear your thoughts, folks that are listening. You can leave a comment on the website or on our Instagram, Music Guy Podcast on Instagram and Twitter, Facebook as well. MusicGuyPodcast.com for all the past episodes. Links to the shop, patreon.com/MusicGuyPodcast if you want to support the show. We would love it. But just having you here listening and telling your friends about it is more than enough. That's all the love in the world that we could ever ask for. I'm at Alro Music on social media. Mike is at Bruno the Meek on Instagram. We look forward to talking at you again in a week's time. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.
That was fucking great.
Yeah, nice
job.
That
was a great episode.